Hello and welcome all to another RichAlvarez live stream. And today we're doing another top 5 games.
Not working.
And that is the voice of Matt Provenzel you're hearing there, who is joining us today, along with, as always, Chris Muller. And we are doing the top 5 NES games. And for those of you who don't know for some reason,
muted, so
cool. I think we're live.
The NES is.
Are we live, Richie?
We are.
why does it say?
We are most definitely live, and I just realized you guys couldn't hear me because I have push to talk on, but I've been talking this whole time. Anyways,
a classic RichAlvarez.
but I've already done the intros. I've already introduced us and said hello, welcome to a RichAlvarez live stream. Hilariously, sometimes I forget to hit my push to talk button so you guys could hear me, but my friends couldn't, which is hilarious. But anyways, yes, we're most definitely live, and I was laughing when when Matt was like, "I've got to unmute," and I'm like, "That's cool, we're live." Anyways,
we couldn't hear anything.
As I was saying,
so we're good.
NES, for those of you who may not know, stands for Nintendo Entertainment System, which was the American version of the Famicom, which stood for Family Computer, in Japan. And essentially, the Famicom and NES are the same. They're just designed slightly different for each market. Of course, as later on, as video games became more popular, the designs in Japan and America were virtually the same, starting with systems like the Nintendo 64, which of course looks the same in Japan as it does in America, etc. But today we're talking about our favorite NES games, and by favorite I mean we chose ones that we thought would sound good as the best.
But that we also enjoyed too. Or at least most of them.
So welcome all. I see we got some RichAlvarez fans, Lunar Bolts, got Gus Babington, and a whole bunch of other people in chat that haven't said anything yet, but welcome to the RichAlvarez live stream of Top 5 NES games, and I bet you guys are just waiting for us to get to the point.
Maybe.
Matt, do you have anything to say to the fans?
Hi everybody. Welcome to this top 5. Say hello. Don't be shy. Yeah.
Yeah, listen to Matt. Thank you, Wingsong5555, for joining us in chat. Anyways, Chris, shall we get to the point?
Yeah, so as always, if you're new or if you've done these before, we're going to rank our top 5. We'll do the honorable mentions before we do number 2 and number 1. And if you would like to join the conversation, you are welcome to send a super chat if you want to mention an honorable mention that you'd like us to discuss. So I guess without further ado, Rich, you want to start us off with number 5?
Yes, the number 5 NES game of all time is, of course, Metroid. So, oh, and I need to mute this. I guess we all have some muting problems today, don't we, Matt?
Yes.
That's okay. Terrible problems!
Oh no.
So anyways, I love Metroid. It has gone through several evolutions as a game series. As with a lot of games that started out as a platformer because of hardware limitations, the Metroid series has, especially with the Metroid Prime series, turned into more of a third or first-person shooter, depending on which title. And I'm really glad that they did end up continuing. I love Metroid and I love Samus. I think it was due in part, probably, to Super Smash Brothers because that the series was able to continue, because it seemed like for a minute there we weren't really getting any more Metroid. There was no Metroid game as far as I can remember on the Nintendo 64. I think they originally planned Metroid Prime to be a Nintendo 64 game, but it was so late in development they ended up redoing it for the Dolphin project, which of course ended up being the GameCube. Well, history of Metroid can wait another time. Why Metroid on the NES though? Because Metroid brought a little bit something different to the platforming series. As you can see, and really it all has to do with the way that Samus moves. I mean, you can even see in this video, this is, of course, a slightly HD modified version of the original game, so it's going to look a little bit better than what you're used to if you've seen footage of the original game. But I really like this mod. Anyways, Samus is able to, spin dash and, shoot and charge up her gun, and, do some really cool stuff that, was, revolutionary and different at the time for a basic platformer. which is completely different from another game that we'll get to on this list very shortly. And I'll be able to talk more about what I want to talk about once we get to that one. But Metroid will always be classic. I feel like it was an extremely underrated series, and in a lot of ways it still is an extremely underrated series. I think Metroid 2 ended up being like a Game Boy game, and then there was one Metroid game, Super Metroid, on the Super Nintendo. But this original game, people still speedrun the heck out of it. It's still an incredibly fun and diverse platforming experience. And I could probably gush about it all day, but we're going to go to Chris.
Very nice. Yeah, so as far as my experience with the Metroid series, I gotta be honest, I never really played any of the Metroid NES games, like, aside from maybe seeing a buddy play it very briefly, because I didn't own an NES growing up. I had a couple friends that had an NES, so there were certain games that we played more often than others, so my introduction to Samus and the Metroid series wasn't even until much, much later, when I played Metroid games on the Nintendo DS as well as the GameCube. So for me, it's interesting to see, the roots of the series. And I can, appreciate how this got everything started, but I don't have the nostalgia for it because I never really played it in detail back when I was younger. But I can tell, it's very well received. I always see this in lists of greatest NES games of all time, including our own. But I mean, it looks pretty good. It looks like a good game.
Matt, do you have anything to say about Metroid?
I didn't play a whole lot of Metroid. I always thought the games, when I did play, it was pretty cool. But I'm not gonna lie, I didn't play a lot of Metroid, so I don't think I have too much to say. I think
you guys don't have too much to say.
The character of Samus is pretty awesome, and I like the concept of it, but I didn't play too much of it, so I can't really say a whole lot.
Well, I love it, and I do have some nostalgia for it.
Well, there you go. That's the important thing.
By the way, I saw that Lunar Bolts just gave us a super chat. Thank you, Lunar Bolts.
But did not specify a game.
Yeah, Lunar Bolts, if you wanted to specify a game, feel free to send a regular chat if there's an NES game you want us to mention in the honorable mentions. But thank you for the generous super chat.
Yes. We are now going to move on to our number 4 spot here. And as Chris just said, if you would like a game to be added to our honorable mentions, please super chat now. All right. Our number 4 game is a game I have to mute. Again, I didn't mute any of the videos. Our number 4 game is Castlevania 3 Draculas Curse. Now you may be asking yourself many questions such as, why Castlevania? Why Castlevania 3? Why does Richie's voice sound like he just came out of a flying circus? All of these questions will be answered here in the next couple seconds.
And now for something completely different.
That was almost a stupid Mario Bros. Narrator there for a second.
Yeah. Will Mario and Luigi get, so. Anyways, so Dracula's Curse, here's why I think it is the number 4 game and why I chose it over the original Castlevania. Although the original Castlevania did have, it obviously established, the Belmont family, hunting vampires, and we got the whip and some other cool doodads. It was really Castlevania 3, I think, that set the standard for Castlevania going forward in a lot of different ways. To name one, you are Trevor Belmont, and the game takes place before the first game. Trevor is supposed to be the ancestor of Simon Belmont being the hero from the original game. And this kind of restarts the canon, if you will. In fact, so much so that the next game in the series, Castlevania 4, is just a remake of the first Castlevania, except with better connections to the story established in Castlevania 3. And, nobody likes Castlevania 2 because they tried to do kind of like an action-adventure RPG thing with it. And, that didn't turn out so well. Very similar to how Zelda 2 was nothing like Zelda, and so they decided not to go in that direction after that. So, but Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse reestablishes the canon. It introduces the idea of being able to switch characters here, like the footage that I grabbed here from Nintendo Complete. This shows that he switched from Trevor to Dynasty, and this is something you can do in the game. There are 4 playable characters, including Sylpha, and of course Alucard, Dracula's son, and they each have different abilities and powers, and it just added a whole bunch of variety to what was originally just a game about basically throwing a whip. and it really solidified Castlevania's status as an extremely unique and fun type of platforming experience, complete with different choices. Like, depending on how you ended levels, it would change the story, and so there's a whole bunch of different multiple endings for this game in a time where that wasn't at all a common thing. And of course, depending on which hero you have as your side hero, at the end, that will also change the story. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here. Of course, the Netflix series, the incredible, and I cannot stress this enough, the incredible Netflix series on Netflix, the animated show, is based off of Castlevania 3, because they also decided that this was the best Castlevania game, and that's what they based the animated series on. So that's why I chose it over the original Castlevania, and it really was Castlevania 3 combined with Metroid that gave us, and this is what I was trying to allude to when I was talking about Metroid, and what I'm talking about now, this is what gave us the experience that people call Metroidvania, which is when you make a platforming experience with a bunch of variety of abilities and powers. And of course, every independent Steam game ever is a Metroidvania game, because they all try to emulate this type of platforming pattern with the different abilities and everything. You hear about Metroidvania all the time. It's basically become its own genre and style. And it is thanks to Metroid, and I would argue Castlevania 3 more so than the first Castlevania. Anyways, I love Castlevania 3, and again, it's another game I could talk about all day. I do want to mention that Ganon136 has super chatted. Thank you so much, Ganon136. His honorable mention is the Star Tropics games. Excellent choices. Chris?
Yeah, we'll as soon as we get into honorable mentions, we'll dive into that one in a little bit more. And also, Lunar Bolts picked their super chat title, the original Zelda, on NES, of course, and we will also be getting into that one in quite a bit more detail, as I'm sure you can guess.
Did you have anything to add to Castlevania 3?
Yeah, I wanted to say Castlevania, it's another one of those series that I remember hearing about all the time. I never really played. I remember you talking about it, but I appreciate you giving us the context of the what'd you say, the Metroidvania? Is that how you phrased it, or Castle Metroid?
It's Metroidvania.
Yeah, because when you said you wanted Metroid and Castlevania to be on this list, at first I was like, really? Like, you want those? But I didn't quite appreciate that they set the standard for what people expect in a 2D platformer. And like you said, every indie game on Steam now copies that style, but they would not exist if it hadn't been popularized and really polished in these early NES games way back in the day. So, you know, this kind of takes us back to the roots of that classic 2D platforming genre. So even though I have not played it really in detail, aside from like, a tiny little bit here and there, it's neat seeing this, and it actually makes me want to go back and play both Metroid and Castlevania to appreciate it more.
Yeah. I like Killjoy's comment saying that she's upset because she doesn't know many NES games and can't super chat. But may I remind you about certain games like Excite Bike and such classics as...
we'll get into it in honorable mentions. We'll get into it. By the way, I wanted to mention, guys, if you have a Nintendo Switch and you buy Nintendo Switch Online, or whatever Nintendo calls their online support, you can get all these NES games on the Switch and play them. And they have a lot of the classics. So if you ever want to go back and relive that 8-bit glory, do it on the Switch.
Matt, Penny, for your Castlevania thoughts?
I have never played Castlevania, any of them. I really don't know a whole lot about it, so I literally have got nothing. I've got one thing. I heard a reference to Castlevania in a JonTron video. That's literally all I know about this. I don't know anything about it, so I've got nothing, and I can't add anything, and I feel kind of ashamed of myself because everyone's saying, it's so groundbreaking, it's awesome. Like, I've never played it. Sorry.
You guys are the best.
So I've got nothing. I've never played it before. So I've definitely heard of it. I've absolutely heard of it. Never played it. So,
well,
sorry.
Matt, tell us a story. Tell us a joke. Matt, dance, monkey, dance.
I'm putting him on the spot.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to do any of that.
Once upon a time, there was a dragon named Mrs. Hobbs.
Woo!
Did we just do story time with Matt 3?
Oh, we already did 3. This would be 4.
4.
Oh, geez, you're right. Oh, Gus Babington just generally super chatted and said honorable mention Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Yes, we will include that in a little bit. Well, Rich, did you want to move on to number 3?
Yeah, we're gonna move on. Thank you, Matt, for story. Anyways,
Of course.
now, of course, as we get to our number 3, our number 2, and number 1, we're gonna get into some that may upset people because everybody has their absolute favorites. This one, this is the hot button one here because some people will argue that it deserves to be number 2 or number 1, but our number 3 is the original Super Mario Bros. Chris, I'm gonna let you take this one.
And actually, we're combining Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt because Nintendo
came on the
put
same
Super
cartridge.
Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt on the same cartridge. Originally, we were gonna not do that, but then we thought, hey, if Nintendo can put 2 games on one cartridge, we can too. So, of course, just quickly on Duck Hunt, it had the little zapper ray gun. Pretty much everybody played it because they played Mario. But anyway. That's.
I mean, I think it came with Mario because they were afraid people wouldn't buy Duck Hunt on his own, and they wanted everybody to experience the light gun, which they never really utilized great for any other game past Duck Hunt for the NES. Yeah. So it would be later when we had home versions on newer consoles for like Time Crisis and stuff that actually utilized light gun technology to its fullest potential. But that's enough about Duck Hunt. We're talking about Super Mario Bros. The original-ish.
Exactly. So, of course, I mean, this is the roots, right? Like, I mean, this is classic 2D platforming. This is where many of the amazing songs by Koji Kondo come out. To this day, it's still, one of the greatest ever made. I'm sure pretty much everybody's played it or is aware of it. What can you say? I mean, it probably broke records for top selling video games. I mean, it's like a staple of nostalgia.
This is what gave Nintendo their like 95% of the video game market back in the day. And I mean, I say ish because of course Mario was first introduced in Donkey Kong in arcades in '81. And then there was the Mario Bros. Arcade game in '83. This just happens to be the first home console Mario Bros. Game, Super Mario Bros. But it is, and I mentioned this in our Mario video as well, it is contrary to popular opinion. It's a wrong opinion. This is not the first Mario Bros. Game because Mario Bros. Came out in arcades in '83. So you're wrong. Anyways, just a little saltiness on top there for you. But yeah, the original Mario Bros, it's still a lot of fun. However, it didn't make our number 2 or our number 1 spot because we got a couple of games that are just better, and we'll explain as we get there. But before we get to our number 2 and our number 1, we're going to talk about our honorable mentions. But before we talk about our honorable mentions, is there anything else you want to say, Chris? It seemed like you did.
I did. Actually, I wanted to give Matt a chance to talk here. Matt, do you remember that Super Mario frustration video that you used to quote all the time?
I was going to mention that, actually. Yeah.
Go ahead. I wanted you to be able to chime in.
So if you guys haven't seen this, I did not make this. This was made back in like 2007. There's a video called Super Mario Frustration. It's of a guy playing like a hacked version of this where there's levels that are just impossibly hard to beat, but he's hacked the game, so he has like 8,000 lives, so you can never die, really. But it's this guy who sounds a lot like a young Christopher Walken.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Hang on, I want to let me search for you. Make sure. I think it's actually called Super Mario Brothers Frustration. Super Mario. Yeah, it's called Super Mario Frustration. It's 23 minutes long. He goes through a couple levels. It was added 13 years ago. It's got 31 million views. And it's just this guy who's like, all right, I'm going to play some Mario. What the fuck? There's no floor here because someone's hacked the level and they made it with this guy.
Like, how'd that get there? Who put that there?
It's the funniest thing. So it's called Super Mario Frustration. It is, hang on. It is this first result. It's under the uploader. Who uploaded his name is Bob Smith. Check it out. Damn it, it is so funny. And it's just this guy trying to play this super impossible hacked version of this game, and he's just getting pissed, and it's so funny.
It's still one of the greats. And it was way before everybody started doing that with Mario Maker.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. It was before Mario Maker, and I just remember, Matt, you and I used to quote that for years. Like, some of the ones I remember is there was a part where he's talking about how, like, things that he didn't like. He's like, this is worse than an episode of Family Guy. This is worse than Panic at the Disco. This is worse than reading YouTube comments.
Yeah,
It's like making fun of the things that were popular at the time. I mean, Panic at the Disco definitely ages it back to like 2006, 2007. So
Yeah, it was back when we were still watching that and like YouTube poops and like whatever the heck those sports commentary things were. It was shut up, Drew Brees.
But yeah, it's a staple of classic YouTube. So if you guys have not seen Super Mario Frustration, check it out. It still holds up today. It's hilarious. And I'm sure that there's probably random references to it in the bloopers of Stupid Mario Bros. Almost positive we made jokes there somewhere to it.
Goomba?
Mario, that wasn't my fault. That was you. I pressed the jump button.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I've covered everything I wanted to share. Either of you guys have final thoughts on Super Mario Bros?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Super Mario Bros. But now we're gonna be doing our honorable mentions, guys. This is it. If there is a NES game, search deep in your soul. You know you've played them on the Wii and Wii U, whatever they were called. So just, find it in your soul. Anyways, this is your time. Please honorable mention if you want us to mention your honorable mention. I've said mention like 5 times now. Because right now we are talking about honorable mentions. And as usual, I'm just going to be putting up a generic compilation video of NES games that have zero to do with our list. I know it's, it can become confusing, but it has nothing to do with our list. It's just a nice compilation video to have something on in the background. Anyways, here is our honorable mentions, and I'm going to mute this video. Jeez. All right. Here we go. AK, thank you. He says, any of the Mega Man games. Yeah, Mega Man is awesome. Wow, what a coincidence. The first video on this compilation list is Mega Man 2.
Hey, that was good. That was good timing.
I mean, yeah, what can I say about Mega Man? It's awesome. And, we were talking about Mega Man in one of our videos recently, because I was talking about, there was the number 9 game. And, because the original creator went on to do other things. I hope I'm not confusing that with Bomberman, but I know one of them made the number 9 game. I believe it was Mega Man. And I was talking about how much I loved Mega Man X, the Mega Man X series, because that's really good. And, of course, there's, awesome NES games like Mega Man 2. However, when it came to making our top 5 list, I strongly feel like later Mega Man games like the Mega Man X series, those are what I think of when I think of Mega Man and not the original. So I thought as good as the original, or as good as older Mega Man games are, like Mega Man 2 on the NES, I didn't think that they belonged on our top 5 list. So sorry, but thank you for mentioning it and adding it to our honorable mentions.
Very nice. Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad you clarified, because I always mix up Mega Man and Bomberman. So when you were like, yeah, we mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, we did mention it. And you're like, that might have been Bomberman. And then I was like, oh yeah, that was Bomberman, because I was talking about Bomberman 64 back on our 64 list. But it's definitely one of those franchises that has stood the test of time, and they're still making Mega Man games, right?
They are. But I think the real question was whether Mighty Number 9 was created by the Bomberman or Mega Man guy, and I believe it's the Mega Man guy.
Gotcha.
But I never actually played Mighty Number 9, so I don't know. I don't know what it plays like. I just know that it was an indie game that happened.
Very good. Well, let's make sure we also go into detail on some of the previous super chats, unless there was anything else you wanted to mention about Mega Man.
Nope.
Okay, so just to backtrack to the beginning here, Lunar Bolts mentioned Legend of Zelda, which, as I'm sure you can guess, we will get to in a bit more detail shortly. Next up, Ganon had mentioned Star Tropics, and I wanted to say this is actually one I remember playing way back in the day. And you play a guy who has like a yo-yo as a weapon, and he can get other weapons, and it feels a little bit like Legend of Zelda, because it's like a top-down 2D game. If you guys want to play this one, I know for a fact it is on the Switch Online library. So if you pay like, what is it, like $20 a year for the Switch Online, you can play Star Tropics, and it's a really good game. It's surprisingly fun. So I would say check it out. You basically are on this like mystery island and you fight monsters, and it was a good one. Did you ever play that one, Rich?
I did play Star Tropics. It's good.
Okay,
Matt,
there we
Star
go.
Tropics? Mega Man? Matt, you there? Did you leave? Bye, Matt.
No.
Bye, Matt.
Matt's there.
I never. I'm a shitty gamer because I didn't play the NES a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I played a handful of things, but the first systems that came into my life were my Game Boy Pocket, the N64, and the SNES. So I'm 30 years old. I've never played an Atari. I have never played an NES. I don't care if you want to shame me or shun me. So be it. I have not played those systems.
We've got a pretty accepting audience, Matt. Nobody's going to shun you or shame you. I might shun you or shame you, but they won't.
Yeah, and I'll mention like my NES games, like I only got to play it when I went to like a neighbor's house, but a lot of these games I ended up playing later because Nintendo re-released many of these games over the years on like the Game Boy or the Game Boy Advance or the Wii Virtual Console or even the Switch. So I would imagine there's probably a lot of you guys out there who didn't have an NES growing up but were able to play like the re-releases later on. So there's always time to go back.
All right, we have Gus Babington who super chatted for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, which is interesting. I actually really enjoy Punch-Out. I do think it worked better as an arcade game, but the interesting history about Punch-Out is that they got, Mike Tyson's licensing for Punch-Out, and then when they asked him for re-releases, if they could still use his likeness, he said no. I guess they couldn't work out a future licensing deal. So the game has always been re-released on virtual consoles and etc. as just Punch-Out. They have since taken away the Mike Tyson likeness. But if you actually play it on the NES with an actual NES cartridge, you'll be playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and the final boss will be Mike Tyson and not whatever they call the final boss now, which is it's basically like a palette swap of Mike Tyson, and they call him like something else. But little fun factoid for all you Punch-Out fans out there. But yeah, Punch-Out, it was an early fighting game, played on what's the perspective? I'll just call it a POV perspective because there is an actual name for it, but it's that kind of first person ish fighting directional thing. I'm gonna shut up. Anyways, Chris.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention something real quick. If you guys want to get a good history of some of these older NES games, there's a YouTuber called Summoning Salt that does documentary videos on speedruns for most video games, but he does a lot of focus on these older NES games. So he has a really good one on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. He has some really good ones on all the Mario games. Another game that I really like that hasn't been mentioned yet is Contra. That was one of my personal favorite games. I'll say probably one of my favorites, not on the top 5 list, but an absolute honorable mention. But yeah, if you guys check out Summoning Salt, you'll get a lot of really good history about the game, and he makes those videos super entertaining to watch, like the history of the speedrun community slowly get closer and closer and closer to like optimizing a game as much as possible. So anyway, yeah, I'd say check them out.
I think that those kinds of videos are helpful for improving like your tactics in the speedrun. However, if you want a really in-depth, like professional documentary style history on all of these games, I would check out Did You Know Gaming.
Oh yeah, that too.
No, Chris, that's the only channel you ever need to watch.
Summoning Salt, dude, those speedrun videos are pretty good. I
don't doubt, but I'm a big fan of Did You Know Gaming.
Did You Know Gaming is really good. They're good too.
Anyways, I'm also going to mention, because you probably figured I was going to mention it, but the first 3 Final Fantasy games, of course, initially in America we only got the first Final Fantasy game because they weren't sure how well Japanese RPGs would do out here in America. So we got Final Fantasy 1 on the NES, and it is still a great game. It's very, very basic. I strongly feel, I'm a big Final Fantasy fan, but I strongly feel like the games really got good with Final Fantasy 3, not to be confused with Final Fantasy 6, which was originally released in America as 3, but it's 6. 3 is good. It is technically a Famicom game, so we could say that it's an NES game, but it's not really because it never came to America. So, I mean, that was the discrepancy there. If Final Fantasy 3 had come out in America, it probably would have made this list, but it didn't, and it isn't. So I mean, there's that. But, you know, I've already gushed to death about Final Fantasy on our Super Nintendo list, because I am a big Final Fantasy fan. But yeah, Final Fantasy didn't have a huge presence, at least in America, on the NES. So I had to skip over it, and we decided to do honorable mentions for the series instead. And I think that's appropriate, because when we think about NES, we think about like Mario and stuff. So
speaking of Mario, Rich, did you want to give the quick pitch for Super Mario Bros. 2 and the shenanigans behind that?
So Super Mario Bros. 2 is another interesting thing, kind of like the discrepancy behind Final Fantasy. So the way that it worked is that we really wanted a Mario sequel in America. However, it was thought that, for whatever reasons, and there's been theories and rumors about the reasons why they didn't want to go with the planned Japanese sequel to Super Mario Bros. 2. One theory is that it was just too similar to the first one, and Nintendo of America didn't want to release essentially the same game. Another theory is that they thought it was too hard. Another theory is that they thought it was too easy. For however it works, Nintendo of America decided to take the Japanese game Doki Doki Land and paint Mario on top of it. And that's what we got as Super Mario Bros. 2, was Doki Doki Land with the characters from Doki Doki Land replaced by Mario, Luigi, Toad, Peach, and then they even changed some of the bad guys to Goombas. However, some of the bad guys were the same, and that's why we were able to get enemies like Shy Guys, which were originally just characters in Doki Doki Land, but now, because of the American Super Mario Bros. 2, Shy Guys are a part of the Super Mario universe, and Japan liked that, and they put Shy Guys in future Mario games, as well as other creatures that were originally in Doki Doki Land. We eventually did get the actual Super Mario Bros. 2 in America, but it was released as Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, which is appropriate since they allegedly thought that it just felt like the first game. So now they could just call, oh, these are lost levels from the first game. And nobody was the wiser, because it does play just like the first game. So, but yeah, Doki Doki Land, I think it was actually a bold decision. It would never be done today, of course, because games are essentially released the same in Japan as they are in America. But back in the early days of video gaming, when, there was barely any internet, and you didn't know what was going on in Japan, you could release a completely different game, slap a Mario label on it, and we didn't know the difference. So it's just a really interesting bit of video game history, but I think that the Doki Doki, it really changed Mario in a lot of interesting ways. So anyways, that's my Super Mario 2 bit.
Very good. Thank you. I knew you'd do a good job catching everybody up on that. And I actually enjoyed Super Mario Bros. 2 quite a bit. Like, that was one that I remember playing a lot way back in the day on my friend's NES. And then, of course, they re-released it on the Game Boy Advance, so I got to replay it. So, yeah. Want to make sure we shout that one out.
Yeah.
Any other honorable mentions, Rich? Like, I mean, I could list off a bunch real quick if you would like. I still got that list open.
No, you go ahead. I thought maybe Matt had something to say.
Oh yeah, Matt, did you want to share anything about any NES games that we didn't mention, or any of the Mario games?
Nope. Remember, I haven't played the system very much. If I've played anything, it's been on a port of a different system. So I'm not gonna lie, everyone who's listening, I'm kind of just here to hang out with my pals and crack a joke or two, because I got nothing on this one. I had stuff to say about GameCube, and I had stuff to say about SNES, but this one I can't say a whole lot because I don't really know too much about it. So
okay, well,
yeah, I'm here.
That's okay.
Chris, did we forget any of the honorable mentions that were mentioned earlier?
Yeah, well, we covered everybody's super chats. There's a few others I could just really quickly list off if you would like.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Our honorable mention section is almost over. Please get your super chats in now.
So there is Excitebike, There is the Donkey Kong arcade port. There's Dr. Mario. There's Ice Climbers. There's did I miss any? Oh, Tetris. Some of those were ports, some were original.
I don't really have much to say about most of those. Like I played Excitebike, but I didn't find it very exciting. I mean, even back in the 90s, I thought it was just a very bad bike simulator. And I was like, I probably didn't think this at the time, but let's just say that at the time I was like, I bet they'll make better versions of this in the future.
It's funny. I'll say this. Richie, was Balloon Fighter, was that NES or Super NES?
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot with that one. I believe it was NES.
It is, because I remember Balloon Fighter. Okay, so here's something kind of funny. If you guys played Animal Crossing on the GameCube, that was back when Nintendo would let you collect NES games, and you could play NES games while playing a GameCube game. And I remember, out of all the games that they had, I had the most fun with Balloon Fighter. So I didn't play... I ended up playing some of these classic NES games while on the GameCube, so it was a video game for your video game. But Balloon Fighter was super fun. Very simple mechanics, extremely entertaining. So yeah, don't want to forget good old Balloon Fighter.
Yeah, Balloon Fighter. There was also, man, the whole time I've been trying to think of this one NES game that I had that I cannot remember the name of. But, yeah.
Well, I think,
doesn't matter. Obviously, it wasn't important enough to remember.
Yeah, well, I think we've pretty much covered all the honorable mentions, so I guess we could transition to number 2. But if anybody joins in later, if any of you guys do think of something that you want, feel free to still send in a super chat, and we'll happily read your honorable mention.
Absolutely. Ooh, here's a good honorable mention right here that I can't believe. This is. Metal Gear, but I think we did talk about this yesterday when we were talking about this list, and the reason why Metal Gear is not on this list is because it wasn't originally for the NES. It was for the Japanese. It was for a Japanese computer, and then it went to the Sega Master System, and then we got it on NES. So it wasn't originally an NES game, and typically when we do these top lists, we go for games that are either exclusive and or were originally on the console we're talking about. Otherwise, Metal Gear would have probably made the list. I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. The original game, it doesn't hold up today as far as stealth spy games go, but it is a really interesting play if you're a fan of Metal Gear. Metal Gear, and then of course it's in a similar decision to the Doki Doki Land with Mario. We never got Metal Gear 2 here in America, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Instead, they took they made a completely different game, and they called it Snake's Revenge for the NES, or maybe it was for I think it's for the original NES. But Snake's Revenge sucks, and it had nothing to do with Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima made Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, which we never got. Of course, you can play Metal Gear and the actual Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake on the bonus disc included with the re-release of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. If you intend to actually play old good games. If you don't, then you don't care, then it doesn't matter. Anyways, hey, here's this cool Batman game. Anyways, let's move on.
That's pretty good. Okay,
right.
So number 2. What's number 2, Richie?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, our number 2 game is, of course, Super Mario Bros. 3.
Oh, yes, I can already hear the music.
So, 2 things. The reason why we I know that typically on lists like this you don't want to have 2 of the same series on the list, but this is the original Nintendo and it was all about Mario. And so putting 2 Mario games on this list, I was pretty comfortable with it. So and then of course the other question is, why does this deserve to be ahead of the list over the original? And we kind of briefly mentioned this on our top Mario games of all time list that we did a few months ago here, but and this kind of goes to the same thing as why Castlevania 3 is on this list instead of the original. It's just I don't think I love the original Mario game, but I don't feel like it added much to the platforming genre as much as Super Mario Brothers 3 did. And not only was it a huge technical improvement over the original, I mean, in like little things like giving us the overworld like that, and the way that Mario moved, and the frame rate enhancements, and the texture enhancements, and like there's a bunch of technical enhancements, but Mario just moves better. The level design is way better. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that likes the original over Super Mario Brothers 3. It's just a better game in every way. And a lot of people, when they look back at the NES and how it, influenced them or how they enjoyed it, etc., like in virtually all of the adjectives you can think of on this game, everybody will tell you that they love Super Mario Brothers 3. Most people will tell you that they like it over the original. And video game designers, when they're doing, especially indie designers, when they're trying to make a fun game like Cuphead, they will mention Super Mario Brothers 3 as an influence. Nobody ever mentions the original. So anyways, Chris.
That sounds like a name for a slasher villain. I'm Cuphead.
Oh, have you never played Cuphead, Matt?
No. Oh, I've never heard of it. I'm a horrible person. I've never heard of Cuphead.
Well, Cuphead is a great game.
Some videos, man. It's basically they took animation from like what was it, Richie? Like the what was it, 20s or 30s cartoons? It takes the Sailor Man and like Betty Boop.
It doesn't take the animation, Chris. It is inspired by classic Flesher animation.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Specifically, Flesher, Warner Brothers, and basically all the Disney, all of the classic cartoons from the theatrical cartoon era of the mid-20s to the mid-40s. So I just had to clarify, because people don't think of that cartoons as theatrical really anymore. Because think about it this way, guys. You know how like you sometimes on TV, maybe they don't air them as much anymore, but sometimes you'll see like an old Looney Tunes cartoon from like the 40s, or an old Disney cartoon from the 30s or 40s. Where do you think you saw those originally? There was no television in the 30s or 40s. All of those cartoons premiered before movies in that era. These were theatrical cartoons made for the theater experience. And then when you get into television was just live action on broadcast cameras for decades. We didn't get the Disney Channel till the 80s, guys. I don't know. We could have a whole video talking about the history of television and cartoons, but I'll save that for another time. My point is that those cartoons were made as theatrical exhibition, which is why you get those film lines and cracks. And Cuphead does such an incredible job of emulating that frame rate with the crackles and the rips in the film, the augmented film in this case. But you get the idea. These were theatrical cartoons. And I feel like I could teach a class about the damn subject, so we'll save it for another video. But anyways, sorry. Well, let's continue talking about Super Mario Bros. 3.
It's okay. So the tangent was that Super Mario 3 is another iconic game that has inspired many people, like the developers of Cuphead. And I gotta say, when I think back on the NES, this usually is one of the first games that comes to mind because it still holds up so good. I mean, this is where we get Raccoon Mario. This is where it's the Warp Whistle. Rich, was that the shortcut in this game?
I believe so.
Do you want to give the little spiel on what was it? Was it the Wizard or whatever that live action movie was that advertised this and showed the world that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Wizard, and it was the first time people saw like clips of this game, and like that whole movie was essentially just a Nintendo advertisement. And the movie, don't watch it, doesn't hold up, promise you.
Never seen it, just seen clips.
I mean, if you want, better, if you want better movies of the age, I mean, I'm a big sucker for fantasy films of the 80s. I love The Neverending Story, Labyrinth,
Highlander.
Yeah. Highlander's good too. Thanks, Matt.
I love how every video about video games turns into videos about films. It's like, all right, I know we're talking about Mario, but what Richie really wants to talk about is the very interesting artistic history of film.
Yeah, well, another day, maybe.
That'll be next time.
Anyways, Mario Bros. 3 is great.
It's very good. Love it. Still holds up, amazing. This is another one that if you have not played this, it has extremely good replay value. So get it on the Game Boy Advance, get it on an emulator that's legal, like on the I guess on the Switch Online. Yeah, great game.
Yep, we're going to move on. So, everyone. Sounds like I'm about to start a game of One Night Werewolf. Everyone, close your eyes. No. Deep cuts. Anyways, our number one NES game of all time is, of course... Are you ready? The Legend of Zelda! And to that I say, huzzah.
It was there in our thumbnail the whole time.
It was. I don't... I feel like this needs little justification. Some people be like, but Mario... because of course Mario became the mascot of Nintendo, but The Legend of Zelda is the best game on the NES. Fight me!
I mean, it really is. So, like, here's the thing, guys. You gotta understand. Legend of Zelda set the bar for what everybody expected out of, like, an adventure game. And there are some technical things that they did. Rich, if I remember correctly, was this the first NES game or one of the first that let you actually save your progress so you could pick up where you left off?
One of the first. I know that like people do mention that and they talk about it, but I didn't play every NES game, so I don't know which other ones had a save feature, but this did have a very archaic save feature.
Yeah. Well, I will recap. I know that we recently posted our top 10 Zelda games of all time. So as a quick recap, the reason that this game is so influential is that it set up the open world feel of an adventure game where you could complete the game in any order that you wanted. Later Zelda games would be a little bit more on rails and you had to go more linear, but it wasn't until Breath of the Wild when they basically returned to form and they allowed people to complete the game in any order that they wanted, which was a callback all the way to this game. So, it's unique in that the current trend of the Zelda franchise is still pulling inspiration from the groundwork that was set in this game.
I would argue that it definitely set up a seamless overworld, open world action experience, collecting Triforces and everything. I wouldn't say it started the open world because I think Ultima deserves that.
You're right. Maybe it didn't start it, but it certainly set the foundation that many would come back to draw inspiration from.
Yeah, but guys, Dungeons and Dragons and I'm sorry. I'm just
yeah, and this game is actually
I do love Dungeons and Dragons though.
Like one of the things I remember about this game is it's like kind of hard, especially getting rupees to buy stuff. Like the enemies do not drop rupees that often. So I remember when I played this game being like, man, like it's really hard to save up money to like get new items. Of course, in the video we're watching, we've already seen a couple rupees drop, but I remember when I played, I didn't see that many. Yeah, the music is great for this game. It's fun. Finding the secret levels. Like I remember Rich and I went to a convention once called Rockage, which was a retro arcade convention, and I got to watch a guy speedrun this game, and they had a live rock band that would play the music. So every time they went into a different level, it was like they played the overworld theme, then they play the dungeon theme. Yeah, it was really cool. It's probably I think it's still on YouTube in some obscure YouTube rabbit hole video, but Legend of Zelda, I think it still holds up today. It's extremely fun. It was a trendsetter in the industry, and I think that it can very, very easily be justified as the best game on the NES. So yeah, I really like this game. It's a good one.
It's really good, Matt.
I have played this one, so everyone can calm down. I have played this one. I've played the NES version of it. I've played the Game Boy version of it. I didn't like it at first when the first one was very like open-ended. You can like finish the game any way you wanted. I like games that have more of a structure to where like if things are too open-ended for me, I'm like, well, there's too much to do and I'm like overwhelmed. I'm like, I wanted to finish this, but I can also go do this, but also I want to kill this person, but I want to, go do this. And
you have a little bit more fun with linear games.
Yeah, I like games where like, oh, you have to complete this to move on. Where it's kind of like it's open ended, but it's like it's open, but it's not like too crazy open. There's a structure you have to follow. So I like the later ones. Like clearly, you know how awesome the later games were.
Matt, what if there was a video game with a completely open world with a huge map where talking to ancillary NPC characters could change the story completely, but there was also a really compelling main story that was driving the game, telling you what to do and where to go. You don't have to follow it. You can go off and do your own thing and then come back to that story later. But basically, it has all of the good things that is about Zelda here, but also a really compelling main story for you to feel like the game is structured enough to get behind and feel like you're completing. What would you say about a game like that?
I don't think such game exists, Rich.
Oh boy.
Oh, well then you haven't played Fallout New Vegas.
I knew you were gonna say that. Leave it to Rich to advertise Fallout New Vegas while talking about Zelda.
Fallout New Vegas. Anyways, so yeah.
Very, very good game, though.
So guys, I think that's about it. Zelda's great. I mean, I have more I could say about Zelda, but I feel like I'd be repeating myself because I already mentioned a lot of good things about this game in our top 10 Zelda video. If you would like to know more of our opinions on the game, go watch our top 10 Zelda video because, hey, it's all about Zelda.
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah. No. Well, guys, anything else?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to thank everybody that joined today. I wanted to thank our members. Hey, it's Killjoy, AK. I'm scrolling up to make sure I didn't miss any of our members. If you guys want to be members, you can hit the join button. And then everybody else, of course, that joined. Thank you guys to those of you who super chatted. Thank you to everybody else who chimed in the comments. This was definitely a fun one, so thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, I did see people didn't super chat these, but I did see like Tetris, and there was another game that I saw in there. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Tetris is it wasn't made for the NES. It was on the NES, but it was originally on a different. It was like on a computer first, but like a Russian computer. So that's another thing we talked about yesterday. Why it wasn't on our list. I do love Tetris, and I love Tetris in basically all of its forms. But yeah, it's not. When I think of the NES, I don't really think of Tetris. Because you can get Tetris on anything. So yeah, it doesn't matter. Tetris is great, but yeah, just a little food for thought there. Matt, do you have anything else to say?
No, just fun to be here and talk about some video games. That's all.
All right, well, I guess that's going to wrap it up. Guys, keep bothering Netflix to give us the damn Zelda show. Just keep bothering them. Because, nobody is going to pay me to make it. So that's clear. Just keep bothering Netflix and make sure that they, get, off their asses and into the drawing room and make that show. And yes, it should be animated. If the Castlevania show has taught us anything, is that format looks and feels great and it's true to the games. Just get that team to make it. I don't know. Anyways, thank you for joining us here today. As usual, I'm RichAlvarez. I can't imagine I would be anyone else on any other day, so, it kind of works out. And I'm joined by Matt Provincial and Chris Muller, and we would like to tell you, have a wonderful day. Chris?
And an even more pleasant tomorrow. And, hey, I have a request. I would like both, if you guys don't mind, Rich and Matt, to play us off with the classic subscribe voice.
How are we supposed to do it at the same time?
So maybe one of you could start it, and then one of you could finish it with the joke?
Please subscribe, and now Matt will finish me off with a joke.
Every time you subscribe to RichAlvarez and like the video, you get lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of jokes.
That was perfect.
Sure.
Well done,
All right, guys. Bye.
See ya. Bye, guys.